You did everything right. You saved for months. You filled out every form, you booked the appointment, and then a consular officer looked at your bank statement and said no, not because you lied, not because you have a criminal record, not because your application was incomplete, but because of a number you thought was enough, a number that, on paper, looked solid. But to the U.S. Embassy, it looked like a trap. My name is John, and on this channel, John's Finance Insights, we don't do generic advice. We do the mechanics, the exact reasons why smart, prepared people still get rejected at the visa window. If you've ever wondered why your bank balance wasn't enough to prove anything, stay here. Because what you're about to hear has ended real travel plans, real business deals, and real lives in ways most people never see coming. Let's start with the most dangerous phrase in the U.S. visa system: proof of funds. It sounds simple: show money, get visa. But that is not how consular officers are trained to read a bank statement. They are trained to detect risk, specifically the risk that you will enter the United States and never leave. That is their job. And a high bank balance alone does not reduce that risk. In fact, in certain contexts, it raises it. Here's the first thing most people get completely wrong. They think proof of funds means I have money in the bank. It doesn't. It means I have a life here that I will return to. Consular officers at U.S. embassies are trained under the Immigration and Nationality Act, specifically Section 214B, which operates on a presumption. Every single applicant is presumed to be an intimmigrant until proven otherwise. The burden of proof is entirely on you. Your bank balance is not proof of funds, when it is one data point in a larger behavioral and financial picture. And if that picture has holes, the number doesn't matter. Here's what a consular officer actually looks at when your bank statement lands on the desk. First, recency. When did the money arrive? A statement showing $40,000 in a checking account that was $800 6 weeks ago is not wealth. It's a flag. This pattern has a name inside embassy review systems: sudden deposit syndrome. It suggests the funds were borrowed or staged specifically for the application, and it triggers deeper scrutiny or an immediate denial. Second, consistency. Is this how the account always looks, or is this a performance? Researchers studying U.S. non-immigrant visa denial patterns have found that financial inconsistency is one of the top 3 correlates of rejection, even when the applicant's stated income appears sufficient. A steady account history month over month signals behavioral reliability, when a spiked account with no corresponding income explanation signals theater. Third, source of funds. Where did this money come from? If the deposits don't match the stated employment or business, the officer will question the entire financial narrative. Cash deposits with no clear origin are a particularly fast path to rejection. This applies even in countries where informal cash economies are normal. The U.S. consular system evaluates based on documentation standards, not cultural context. Now here is where it gets brutal. You could have $100,000 in your account and still get rejected. Not because the money is fake, but because of how it looks next to your life. A 24-year-old applying for a B1, B2 tourist visa with no property, no dependents, no stable employment history, and $100,000 in a checking account is not a reassuring profile. It's a profile that raises the question, why would this person come back? The money, in this case, becomes evidence of mobility, not stability. And it suggests the applicant has the resources to disappear into the U.S. economy. This is the reframe most people never get. In the U.S. visa system, wealth without roots is not an asset. It is a liability. The consular officer is not judging your character. They are calculating probability. And probability, in this context, is built from a pattern. Do you have reasons to return? A spouse, a mortgage, a business, children in school, a lease, a job with documented future obligations. These are what behavioral economists call commitment devices, verified anchors that make your return statistically likely. A bank balance without these anchors is just a number. Let's talk about the specific documents that move the needle, not the ones everyone submits, the ones that actually work. First, a letter from your employer on company letterhead specifying your role, your salary, your leave dates, and a direct statement that your position will be held for your return. This is not just a courtesy letter. And it is a legal and operational commitment on paper. It shifts the burden. Now, the officer sees a person with a professional infrastructure that requires their physical return. Second, property documentation, a mortgage statement, a land title, a lease agreement in your name. This creates what immigration attorneys call ties to home country. It is one of the most weighted factors in B1 or B2 adjudication. Renters with documented long-term leases consistently outperform high-balance bank accounts as credibility signals in visa interviews. Third, 3 to 6 months of bank statements, not a current balance printout, not a letter from your bank. 3 to 6 months of transaction history, ideally showing regular income deposits, regular recurring expenses like rent or utilities, and a stable or gradually growing balance. This is behavioral financial consistency. It tells a story. And stories beat numbers every time. Fourth, business documentation if self-employed. Tax returns from the last 2 years, business registration, contracts with clients, proof of ongoing revenue. The consular officer needs to see that your business cannot run without you, that your physical presence in your home country is operationally necessary. That is the tie that matters. Now let's talk about the number, because people always want a number. How much money do I need? The U.S. Department of State does not publish a minimum balance requirement for B1, B2 visa applicants. There is no official floor. What they do have is a framework. Your funds must be sufficient to cover your intended stay without requiring unauthorized employment in the United States. For a 2-week trip, most immigration attorneys suggest having at minimum $3,000 to $6,000 in documented liquid assets. But the quality of the documentation matters far more than the quantity. A $4,000 account with 6 months of consistent history can outperform a $40,000 account with a 2-week deposit window. There is something else almost nobody talks about: the interview itself. Most applicants treat the financial documents as the product. They are not. They are the script. You are the performance. When the consular officer asks, "How will you fund this trip?" the answer cannot be hesitation. It cannot be a vague reference to savings. It must be specific, calm, and immediate. I have approximately $8,500 in my Chase savings account, supported by my monthly salary of $3,200 from company name. I have submitted 3 months of bank statements and my last 2 pay slips. That answer is confident, it is traceable, it eliminates ambiguity. And ambiguity in a consular interview always resolves in the officer's favor, not yours. Let's address one more scenario that destroys applications: third-party funding. A parent, a spouse, a relative is paying for the trip. This is completely legal. But how it is documented matters enormously. The sponsor must provide their own bank statements, a formal sponsorship letter, proof of their relationship to the applicant, and in many cases, evidence that they have funded prior travel for this applicant. An unsigned note saying, "My father will pay," is not documentation. It is an invitation to denial. The stakes here are higher than most people realize. A visa rejection on a B1, B2 application becomes part of your travel record. Future applications to the U.S. and in some cases to other countries in the Five Eyes network will surface this rejection. You will be required to disclose it. And consular officers in subsequent applications will see a pattern. This applicant was once deemed a probable overstay risk. That designation does not expire. It has to be actively countered with evidence of changed circumstances. Here is what the data tells us clearly. Financial documentation quality is not the same as financial quantity. A study examining the visa denial patterns across non-immigrant applicant pools found that the most rejected profiles shared 2 traits: recently inflated account balances and weak documentation of home country ties. Not poverty, not criminal history. Documentation failure. That is a solvable problem, and solving it before your appointment is the difference between a stamp in your passport and a rejection letter in your hand. So let's pull this together. The U.S. visa system does not reward wealth. It rewards rootedness. It does not respond to numbers. It responds to narratives. Your bank balance is not your visa application. Your life, documented clearly and consistently, is your visa application. The balance is a supporting character, not the lead. If you have a visa interview coming up, do not walk in with a high number and confidence. Walk in with a complete story and evidence. Know your balance, know the history, know the source. Document your ties, document your employment, document your return. And deliver it with the calm of someone who knows that the strongest thing in that room is not the money in the account. It's the life waiting for them back home. If that shift in thinking landed for you, subscribe now. Not to support a channel, but to declare something about yourself. I am the kind of person who understands the system before I walk into it. That is the identity of someone who doesn't get blindsided. That is who this channel is built for. Now, I want to ask you something directly. Imagine you have your appointment scheduled in 30 days. Your account looks solid, but your last 6 months of statements show 3 large deposits with no clear source. Do you delay the appointment and rebuild the paper trail, or do you go in and hope the number is enough? Drop your answer in the comments. Say delay or go in. Because the answer you give right now is the answer your consular officer will give you. The system is not unfair, it is just unforgiving ignorance. Know the rules. Build the story. Walk in prepared. Because the difference between a visa approval and a visa denial is rarely about how much money you have. It's about how clearly you can prove that you are not the risk they are paid to find.